A man getting bit by an alligator and he screams.
Okay, quiet. Hey, quiet.
Shoot out towards me.
Ow! No, not an owl. A real scream of pain.
Okay, well, welcome back to a special episode of Driving While Screaming. This is a two-parter. We're going to do a before and after. And I think one of the big reasons to do this is to get to Materialists, the new film by Celine Song, her second after the brilliant Past Lives. This one stars Dakota Johnson, Pedro Pascal, and Chris Evans, Captain America. And is this before we get into like all the plot and stuff, is this the first, I don't want to give this movie too much credit,
Sure.
but the first,
Right.
but the first decent movie he's been in since the Marvel stuff?
Well, I mean, like if you consider, I don't know when timeline of Knives Out happened.
Oh, right. I guess Knives Out would be,
I would say
okay.
Knives Out
Okay.
would be that small role for him.
Yeah.
I guess, are you saying this movie's decent? Then that's a question you have. I don't think he's great in this.
No, I'm not saying he is.
But I mean, like, and I didn't hate this movie, but like, I didn't love it either. But yeah, probably this has probably been the best thing. Like, okay, so he's in that upcoming Ethan Coen film. It's basically the kind of the pseudo Ethan Coen trilogy we talked about when we talked about Driveway Dolls.
Right.
And I forget what it's called.
It's not
Hello.
Don't Worry, Darling, but it's something darling, right?
Yes,
or Doll or Baby. No.
It's like, I don't know what it is. I mean, Margaret Qualley looks great. I other than that, like everybody else, like just feels. And it's weird because the trailer got me. I'm like, all right, this looks okay,
Yeah.
but like Evans looks pretty bad in that too.
Yeah.
Like he looks like he's channeling the Righteous Gemstones, and I don't know if he has the right. Like, before we get into so let's just kind of just stay on Evans because we've got a good hour before we get to Texas Theater. We've got 6 miles to go, and we got will be a good hour before we get to Texas Theater. Thanks, Dallas.
Traffic on a Friday.
Like, is Evans? Like, how do you feel about his like entire career? Because I think like at this point, my favorite film of his is Not Another Teen Movie, and then from there, I'm not sure there's anything else that I like. His cameo stuff is fine. He's fine in Scott Pilgrim, but he kind of had that like early Ryan Reynolds kind of like, I don't know, career essentially, like where he played the fast talking. Smart aleck hunk, right?
Yeah.
That's what he did in Fantastic Four. Like he really hasn't had, like, and the stuff that he's tried to do that's been like weighty drama stuff really hasn't worked.
No.
I mean, that Dakota Fanning film that he did, and it's just like all kind of smulty, like horseshit. I mean,
Right,
so
and he's not very good in them.
right. I mean, he's wildly attractive. Other than that, but he seems like he's getting by on his good looks.
Right, which is weird because I do think that he's good as Captain America.
Sure.
Like I think that he knows what he's doing in that role and brings something to it.
Yeah,
which I don't think the other parts he does anything with.
And like I think Knives Out he's good in as well.
Right.
Like, I mean, like that
Right.
that kind of smarmy asshole works in for him. And I don't know if like I said, I don't know. I'm just kind of torn. Like I don't know what to expect out of him, and I'm trying to think like what he's led, like what's been a star vehicle for him outside of the Marvel stuff. And I can't think of anything. Like nothing comes to mind, which kind of makes me think that well, he hasn't really had like a career that is notable in that sense, which also like leads me to like, I think after watching Jurassic Park Rebirth or Jurassic World Rebirth, which is a terrible title for any film, adding birth as a word in your movie title is. It started off with Birth of a Nation, and it all went downhill from there. Like it's been that you shouldn't have done it ever.
Right.
But I don't know. I think a lot of times these people lose the ability to act once they've been in these films, because Scarlett Johansson's so bad in Jurassic World, and like I'm just like she used to have chops, and now I just feel like anytime I see her, it's just this like kind of plastic cardboard cutout.
So was Chris Evans good in Snowpiercer? Because he's
not asked to do a lot.
No, but he is sort of the lead.
Right. I guess he's in Sunshine, right? I mean, like,
yeah.
Which again, he's not really the lead in that. I mean, but he's an ensemble piece.
So when he's part of like a bigger group, when he's not asked to do kind of everything or carry everything.
Like, I guess I would ask, is Keanu good in John Wick? If we're asking the same thing about like Evans and Snowpiercer. And I know that those aren't like exactly the same types of films, but it feels like a role where he's just there to punch through and act serious, right? I mean, like it doesn't like, I don't know if there's really, I don't know if Bong like needed him to do much in that role. And could you have, I mean, like, regardless of whether you can put somebody else in there, I mean, yes, he was fine. I don't think he detracted from it. I think he knew, he understood the assignment.
Right.
I don't necessarily think it's a heavy lift for him.
Gotcha.
And maybe I'm wrong. I mean, maybe it was all on his shoulders. But I do think, all of the, like when you look at like Bong Joon-ho's like we've talked about before, his English language films, and they have that kind of just that really bonkers sensibility that almost his other ones don't really seem to have in a sense. I don't know. Like I feel like Evans gets lost in the chaos of Snowpiercer. So I don't know.
But that's probably one of his better films that he's done outside of.
Right.
And I mean, I think that there's only like one good Marvel movie that he's been in anyway. So like, I'm not a fan of those films either. Right. I'm just not a fan of those films.
Captain America: Parallax View.
Yes. Captain America: 70s paranoia thriller here.
Folks, we're going 3 miles per hour on a major interstate highway, so this is what's fun about Dallas traffic.
If you're in the DFW area,
you
understand. Sometimes you just want to like talk about movies for an hour.
Right. So, but I don't think he's very good in this. I don't think that he...
Here's the question. Is anyone... So I think Dakota Johnson is, but is Pedro Pascal?
No.
Okay.
No, because I think here's the real danger of Pedro Pascal, is I think that Pedro Pascal at this moment is full of Pedro Pascal-ness, and I think he's let that get to his head. It'll be really interesting to see what he does with Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
And I think he was fine in, but like Last of Us, but I think maybe The Last of Us probably is the last thing he's going to be able to do, or he's going to have to really stretch. Because now he's just Pedro Pascal.
Right.
That's all he is in this movie. Now, we'll get to the big twist of this film, but like, or I mean the reveal, I guess. Not really a twist per se.
It's more of a break.
No.
More of a stretch.
Yes. It's more of an elongation, if you will. But like I don't feel like he just shows up and he's just handsome.
Yeah.
That's all. I mean that's
all,
it. Right?
That's it.
And I think that's one of the bigger flaws of this film. And again, we can kind of set the whole stage for it all. But talking about this, I think the star power of this film, and like we talked about yesterday, about how you have, indie bands who don't have any money and really put it all on the line. And then you get someone gives you money and your second album sucks balls because you had all this, you lost your edge, you've lost your hunger, you lost the need to like worry about everything because you've had a little bit of a bankroll. I think this is very indicative of that. And I think the star power for this film, even though these aren't like huge stars, they're all very pretty people. And I think it undercuts a lot of what she's
I feel like she was really I feel like she was really trying for something, because I think she was trying to be edgy in a way, and I just don't think that it worked. I kind of felt like she got stuck in some conventions, and maybe those conventions were like studio notes and stuff. I don't know.
So what's the Netflix rundown?
No, it's the IMDb.
The IMDb. Sorry, right? I don't know. It's been a while since we've done all these things, right? So it's.
It hasn't been that long.
Keep streaming, guys. Is this when I say that?
Is that when I say that? A young, ambitious New York City matchmaker finds herself torn between the perfect match and her imperfect ex.
Right. And so we go back and forth. With Dakota Johnson she's basically Hitch.
Right.
Except she's not doing it for. I mean, so you can kind of say this that they're these like women who don't feel like they can find men, and of course men who want very specific women. Which again, okay, so this, like you said, this film feels like it's trying to say something about modern dating and about how in 2025. When we live in this online world, how men and women react, what their expectations are, especially in a upwardly mobile, top 10%er type of world where
this is very economic driven as well.
Right. So we get men that are and women that are both ridiculously superficial, and Dakota Johnson doesn't judge any of them. She just sets people up on dates.
Yep.
There's a odd. I think the tension piece here that they add into this movie, where one of her clients gets sexually assaulted, and I think it only exists, right? Because it doesn't say anything about anyone really, other than the woman who gets sexually assaulted, where she's just, where she's made to feel stupid because she's paid for this service, and or she feels stupid on herself. I don't necessarily she's made to feel stupid. But
when she turns to Dakota Johnson and calls her a pimp, I think that's one of the more biting moments in the film. That also,
right? But I mean,
is meant to make us question.
But what's the message there, though? Right? I mean, because it's not. I mean. Because taking the sexual assault out of this equation, she was fine with everything that was happening, right? It was only when it turned south.
Well, that's usually when dating goes back.
No, but you know what I'm saying? Though? Right,
yes. She was fine with the financial arrangement to pay someone to hook her up on dates or find dates for her.
Right, and so there was some expectation that they would vet these people a little better. But again, that's really the only. So she's not really a pimp. She's just bad at her job, or the organization is bad at vetting their clients.
Right.
That's really the only thing that's key here. Now, we're only given the sexual assault piece to give some empathy to Dakota Johnson's kind of robotic look at this transactional relationship between men and women. And I think my biggest problem with this entire film is that Dakota Johnson's torn between two bad choices, right? I mean, she ultimately comes to find, and that's the other thing about the sexual assault, is that doesn't lead Dakota Johnson to realizing that what she's doing is not going to work for her, right? Or it's not. Or maybe there's something more to what she should be looking at her job in a different way, right? And again, I don't necessarily think you have to go with all of these types of conventions that this type of film does, where you've got some power. It's like Wall Street, right? You've got some power-driven, young, hungry, money-loving executive that realizes at the end of the day what he's doing is harming people, right? And that's what this is in essence, right? She had a bad relationship. She found herself that she was good being able to set rich people up, which seems like the easiest job in the entire world, right? I mean, but
I love their demands, right? I mean,
right.
But I think this is where the film does something where it's trying to subvert the rom-com conventions. I mean, think about we get these kind of montage scenes in every rom-com. But
right,
here,
kind of When Harry Met Sally talking to the camera.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting, because when When Harry Met Sally, right, they're loving couples,
right?
And here we get these superficial people who are like, 29's too old for me, right?
Right.
I want someone mature, but 25, right? And women saying similar things too, of he's kind of balding, or he's not tall enough. I mean, height is a big thing as it comes up in the kind of end and the reveal too. But I think that is is smart. I think that is interesting, as well as the fixation on money from everyone, right? And that idea that like what this is just a financial transaction.
But I do feel like I understand the trappings, right?
Yeah.
And I understand the whole title of the movie is The Materialists, right? But I do feel like comparing this to something like, and again, it's unfair, but comparing this to past lives, you get the feeling in past lives that these are people who have money, but they're not like, they're not wealthy to the extent that it separates the audience from the people that are in this film. And so she tries to toe the line, right, between having Chris Evans, who's has the Peter Pan complex and wants to live his artistic life, but is completely frustrated by it, and then Dakota Johnson kind of being the in between, where she's making. It was weird to me that they stated her like salary.
This has been a big discussion around this film.
Okay.
This has been a big critical discussion around this film of they're like, okay, she says I make $80,000 a year before taxes.
Right.
And everyone's like, how does she live where she lives and dress how she dresses? How is this possible? And I mean, and that's a real question. And somebody kind of, was it in New York Magazine or Vulture, where they were like, look, she probably lives like on the very edge of like Williamsburg, right?
Sure.
In a super teeny tiny studio. Okay, fine. Right, but still, like, she lives by herself, right? In this part of town. Now, granted, Dakota Johnson's going to look good no matter what she wears.
Right.
It doesn't matter. But her clothes look fairly expensive. They don't look like she bought them at Old Navy.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, how does she afford a lot of this?
I'm not so much hung up on like all of the, like, I just feel like it's a weird thing to do to give it a number. It's like anytime you do something like that, you're inviting people to then critique it, right?
But isn't that exactly why she did it?
I don't know, though.
To invite us to critique it.
Is it?
But isn't like,
because why do we care? Why do we care? Because like I don't.
But aren't all of these people are fixated on how much like these potential matches make, right? Everyone is like, they need to make over 250. They need to make this. They need to make that. That needs to be clear. But also, like, this is something we never talk about in public. This is a taboo thing, right?
Right.
We don't talk about salaries. We don't. It just, like, we would never think to ask or mention it. Right?
I just think the specificity of the number is what's the problem here. She could have said, somebody could have said, they could have done a guessing game, right? Where do you make 250? Oh, I make less than that. Do you make 60? Oh, I make more than that. And that's all I'm going to say. Like, I mean, it's just, rather than try to then have, your audience try to figure out the remainder. Like, because again, it really doesn't matter. Like, she could have been gifted all of those clothes by previous lovers. She could have, like, there's all kinds, like the company could have put her up or subsidized her apartment, or it could have belonged to the company to give her some artifice of wealth,
success,
because she has to be.
But I also think that she brings up this exact number because these movies never do that.
True.
These movies, like these conventional rom-coms, we always see like.
She's got a habit, does it? But
okay, well, but that is that a conventional rom-com?
Yeah, absolutely.
You think?
I'm just kidding.
Okay, I'm like, wait a minute, what the fuck, right? No, but if you think about like anything, we would see Chris Evans would be still a struggling actor, but he'd live in his own loft somewhere, right?
Right.
And we, some of us would be like, how does he afford that? But that wouldn't be the point, right? Or same thing with Dakota Johnson. You would have a bigger apartment, right? And it would never be explained. Like how this got, I mean, that's the thing with those conventional movies. We never see, right, the financial struggle. It's just we see these like well-to-do people who talk about being poor.
Right.
Even though you're like, well, if you're poor, right, how does this work?
Right.
So, I mean, I think that's another reason. But again, like that's where I think that she's trying really hard to subvert and circumvent a lot of these conventions, but
I don't know if
she gets kind of caught in the trappings of them.
Right, and I don't really know if it adds anything to the conversation in regards to what we're talking about, what her movie's trying to get across, right? Of this, I mean, look, this is a love conquers all type of scenario, right? Where she comes to realize that, like, maybe it shouldn't be transactional, and maybe but I think the entirety of it all is like her decisions at the end really, really kind of are kind of fucked. Like that, and that's the thing about like with past lives. I think you can all like see yourself in any one of the three, right?
Right.
And here, I don't know if that's the same case. So we'll lay out the rest of the plot. She's a matchmaker, right? And we flash back as she had dated Chris Evans. We open up with, and like two of her clients are getting married. And she goes in and like and I don't exactly know the timeline. I don't remember the timeline, but at one point she goes to the wedding and the bride is freaking out, and all of her bridesmaids are like, "We need you. Come in here." She's on the bed, and she's like, and she goes in and she's like, "Look, why are you?" You know, she's crying and she's like, "I'm getting married and I'm going to be this wife and like this. I'm giving up everything about myself." And she's like, "Why are you marrying him?" And he's like, "To piss off my sister." And she's like, "Oh, so it makes you feel valued."
Right.
Which is, I think those are interesting conversations to have.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
That's let's spin this in a different way, because we're all, if you want to break down our base instincts and how we behave and how we react and the decisions that we make, they can be spun in a bunch of different ways, right? We can be petty and selfish and small, or we can look at it in a different light and still be able to look ourselves in the mirror, right? And so she says, I want to piss off my sister because my future husband's better looking, he's taller, he makes more money than my sister's husband. And she's like, "Oh, so he makes you feel valued," and they get married. And we cut back to a flashback of her and Evans together, and they're like,
well, we see it after we meet Evans.
Right, because so at the wedding, Evans, so she's meeting new potential clients, and she's talking to women at the wedding, and Pedro Pascal overhears what she does, and he clearly finds her attractive, and he goes and talks to her. And she's like, "Look, I don't date, like you don't want to date me. I'm not the kind of woman you would want to date. Like, you can get someone way better than me, who makes more money than me, who's younger than me. You're a unicorn, all this stuff." Yeah. And he's like, "Let me get you a drink." And then this is where we get to see her blue collar roots, where she gets a Coke and a beer, which is a fucking stupid fuck. I don't even know. I mean, I hated that moment so much.
Yeah.
Like, it's so dumb. That because it's so okay, nothing in past lives was contrived. Right. There were no plot moments that were just like, ah ha ha ha, here's a cute little thing. And as soon as she says a Coke and a beer, boom, boom, a Coke and a beer gets slammed down. You think, oh, well, Pedro Pascal somehow knew that about her.
Yeah, but no,
it's her old ex who's working the event because he's a 35-year-old or 40-year-old caterer who gives a shit, right? I mean, like,
he's an actor working a catering job,
right? It's supposed to be embarrassing, right?
Right.
And then so she goes, she's like happy to see him. She hugs him. She leaves Pedro Pascal alone for a bit, but then she goes back in and like gives him her card and like dances with him. And Evans like sees her. And then, he has to drive her home in the shitty car he's always had. But we flash back to their relationship. Yeah. And basically she gets out of the car in the middle of a New York street because he won't pay for parking because he can't pay for parking. And she's like, "I don't want to be this person where we're always fighting about money."
And they've got a dinner reservation.
Right. And they're going to be late and they're going to be charged for it. I don't want to be this person who's like fighting over meals and me, blah, blah, blah. And then the rest of it just becomes like, she eventually obviously starts dating Pedro Pascal and he's taking her places and getting her a passport and buying her all these nice things. And like, she seems enamored by the trappings. And then one of her clients, we see this go back and forth, right? We see she meets with her clients. They say awful things. All of them say awful things. She still sets them up. And then one of her clients ends up getting sexually assaulted because the person that she set him up with is a person that she'd been setting that guy up with for a while, and the woman for a while as well. Had not found a match for her, and the guy that turns out he didn't make over a certain amount of money, he wasn't a certain height, and he ends up, I guess raping her, or and then he kind of stalks her and like, and then Dakota Johnson like flips out, like that's her big moment to question everything that she's, kind of. Thought about,
she re-questions everything she thought about love before,
right? In the way that she's trained herself to look at these relationships now that she's left Chris Evans. And then we see also then like Chris Evans, says he wants to meet up with her, or like they're going to go get dinner or whatever, and they reconnect. Which again, there's no like, I think Dakota Johnson's great. I think she's really good in this. I think that she has the right like tone for this. Yeah. I don't think there's any really chemistry between her and Evans, to be quite honest.
Or Pascal.
Oh well, and I think it's intended to not have chemistry with Pascal. I think her whole standoffishness with Pascal is like, look, he's good looking, and you know, obviously you'd have sex with him, but like ultimately, like it's kind of an empty relationship, right? Because you're only looking at the things that are around him, right? The $12 million apartment, and
right,
like,
and the trips and the dinners and the gifts, yeah.
And so,
but you know, and she says when they're dancing at the wedding that the next man she dates is going to be rich and she's going to marry him,
right?
I mean,
right.
So she's got herself sort of stuck in that mindset.
And
they go to Chris Evans' play. Right? He's in a play, and then he says, "How do they end up going to
the wedding?"
Yeah.
So she was going to go on a trip with Pascal.
Oh wait, that's
right. And then she's like,
right.
I can't go with you. We're breaking up.
Yeah.
Like,
and then she shows up.
But she'd subletted her apartment.
Right. That's it.
And she
shows up at
how
his
about
place.
we just drive? And they crash.
Yeah.
They crash a wedding.
Right. That was
because it was his catering company that was doing the wedding. So they crashed the wedding, and then she's yelling at him in the wedding, like, and then she ends up with him. Like, she goes back with him. But my problem with all of that, right, is that, like, Evans hasn't shown any growth in the time that they've gone. Like,
no.
This is a complete, and she has. And so, like, it's weird to me that it's so definitive. Like, at the end, and don't make a masterpiece your first film out, I guess, is the real moral of this story. But when she's crying on the street as her lifelong, the young love of her life is leaving, going back home, and her husband, and she, and she's realizing, weighing all the things that she has versus the things that she potentially could have had, and this life that she has now, and this life that she saw as a young girl. We just get this, like, kind of weird, like, high five moment of, like, oh, you know what, fuck it. Everything that's come before in the past 5 years that I've been doing this job, or whatever it is, now it doesn't matter, right? It's like, it's fine. We'll go back to, I'll regress to a man that, yes, he's attractive and he loves me, but I don't think that she loves him.
See, but I think the movie wants us
to believe that
she's always loved him.
Right.
That the reason that she left him was because he didn't make any money.
Right, but
that's she says so, like, but I don't want to be poor, like, you're too poor for me, essentially. Right.
But honestly, though, like, that's not a mature movie. That's obviously not. I mean, like, she doesn't leave Chris, because if she left Chris Evans because he doesn't make any money, then, I mean, she's a bad person. There's more to it.
But she even says she's a bad person.
Right, yes, but I know, but she doesn't really truly believe that, though, either, right? I mean, that's the thing, is that, and I think that's the moment, like, that we're trying to be told when she talks to the bride, right? Is that, I think I'm a bad person because, like, I'm only doing this. Yeah. But no, there's more to it than that. Right. And I think if you undercut what that first moment in the movie with saying, oh, look, you're looking at it the wrong way. You want to be valued. Mm-hmm. You have values in your life that are important to you. Don't discount them just because other people are going to judge them, or you're judging them yourself. Like, this idea that she's not a bad person because she leaves. Like, she didn't leave Evans because he was poor. She left Evans because he was, I mean, yes, it was part of him being poor, but he was also unambitious and settled. And, like, I mean,
did he settle, though? Because he kept going to auditions.
Right, but I mean, like,
this is, I think this is something that the movie doesn't really, we get something about it at the end where he's like, I'll take more catering jobs. I'll find a waiter's job. I'll go to commercial auditions even though I hate them. So you get the idea that this guy wants to be a stage actor, and that's it. Right, that's why he's in New York.
Right, and so now we're compromising, a la
that's the other
Grease,
thing.
where we're giving up who we are because we want to be with somebody else.
Well,
who wants to change us?
Because I think one of the things to admire about Evans' character is that he hasn't quit. He hasn't given up, right? And I think that is admirable. I think that, like, saying, no, this is what I want to do. It's what I think I'm good at.
But it's also, he's not willing to buy into the hustle either, though.
Because he won't go to do commercials.
Right, because he thinks things that are beneath him.
Yeah.
And so that's the immaturity of Evans, right? It's not that he's a bad person. He's just bad at what he's doing.
So, but, I mean, I think one of the flaws, then, is that we never see that before. Right. We never, like, during their breakup, we get why we think she's a bad person, but we never get anything about him. right?
Right.
We never get this.
Well,
like,
and that's what Past
you
Lives-
won't go do this, you won't go do that.
Right. That's what Past Lives does so well.
Yes,
That was
yes.
even as we see them as kids, right?
Right.
We see that relationship as it's. We have a reason to believe in that relationship. We
Yeah.
have a reason to believe that were she to choose to leave her husband, which is a terrible fucking thing, that we would
Right.
understand it. In this case, like, okay, so let's get to the reason why she leaves Pascal. But obviously she has no chemistry with him. But
Right.
she's sleeping with him one night, and earlier in the film, they're talking about like how people can up their Q essentially,
Right.
and like how men can do certain things, and they talk about this surgery where men break their legs and
Stretch
then
out.
basically stretch out and become over 6 feet tall. And it's like a $200,000 surgery. And they're both of them who work at this agency. So, oh, that's a great investment. That's like if you have the means to do it, I would absolutely do it. And so she's sleeping with him, and like she like looks at his legs and sees the scar.
Yeah.
And then she realizes, oh, and then she kind of freaks out and like gets up, and she's like, look, I'm not leaving you. Like, this is not working out because you were short or you made changes to yourself. I agree that you should have made changes to yourself.
Yeah.
I made changes to myself to do this. I just realized we're the same person, and that's not a good thing for
Right,
like
right.
we're the same in this. We're both trying to look at this as transactional, and it's only going to end up bad for both of us.
Yeah.
At a certain point, we're going to look at this where the transaction's not going to be worth it. I'm going to age out, and you're
Right,
and
right.
like, or you will, or whatever, and we'll both figure out we could do better. And you're always, if you're doing this as a transactional relationship, at a certain point, you're going to change the transaction. And he's like trying to convince her that he won't do that. And I think that's a really, I don't necessarily know if that was needed.
No.
I think it's a really, really kind of punch in the dick to anybody who is under 6 feet. And like, I think it's such an insulting thing to say.
Well, but doesn't that again like kind of underwrite the superficiality of the people in this film?
But the moment, but yes, but they're also then trying to save both of these characters, right?
Right.
If you, there's no reason. I mean, look, you only talk about it because you've got to have it as a reveal, right?
Right.
You only mention the leg breaking surgery. It would make more sense for Evans to have had it, right?
Right, because he's trying to, yeah.
Right. This idea that like Pascal couldn't find the woman that he wants at 5'6" and still a multimillionaire in New York City and looking like he does
is
bonkers,
ridiculous,
right? It's yeah. And so again, like talking about the 80,000, like we're all going here. Oh, well, everyone would still fuck Pedro Pascal,
Right.
if he was 5'6". Would he have harder time? Maybe
With taller women.
but the money would be fine. I mean, it's
Yeah,
not like there's
yeah.
like short dudes don't get. I mean, it's dumb.
People like short guys. I mean, that's not.
It's dumb, and
Yeah.
and then so she leaves the moment that she realizes they're both kind of superficial. But he can only see it as, oh, she realizes I was short,
right.
and that now, and so it's a really weird moment, and I just feel like any seriousness of the like, will she, won't she, who should she choose? Like, there always should have been a question of, this movie should have ended up with her still in conflict. This movie should have ended up where we don't necessarily know which one she's going to choose.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and again, I don't think you have to remake Past Lives, but you put such a cutesy ending to this, and such a Pollyanna ending to this.
Right.
And I think it's just, it's weird, and it's also, then why call your movie The Materialists?
Right, when at the end you're choosing the non-material things.
Yeah,
right. But I think going back to the leg breaking thing, I think this is kind of like the salary, like the 80,000, where it's this thing planted to show how ridiculous these people are, right? And their kind of like quest for, it's not even love, right? It's a quest for like partnership or secure, I don't know, right? The status quo. But it doesn't pay off at the end, right? Like you're saying, it's not needed. She doesn't need that to leave him.
Right.
Right? Right. And so it doesn't, like you said, it comes off as almost insulting, right? To So those of you out there under 6 foot, which I am not one of those, no, I'm kidding, but I'm not. But yeah, no, but it comes off as insulting and kind of silly, where that wasn't her intent, but it just doesn't work. It's like a lot of these like instances that just don't kind of pay off and work at the end.
And especially because the way that Pascal reacts to it, this guy shouldn't still have the complex of being short when he is no longer short. He should own this. I mean, like, yes, it's still, I guess it can be embarrassing for for her to know. But one, it's like, oh, anybody who has scars in their legs, they clearly know that's what's happening here. Right. And so that rings a little false as well. Right. Like if she had talked to him about it, like, oh, did you know that there were this thing that these guys do, and he is actively trying. I mean, like, there's things you could have done to make this a little bit more cohesive as a plot. Right. But then, like, when he ducks down, and like, I just felt like that was so. It's like. You might as well have just just taken your shoes off and been on your knees and just did a Dorf impression.
Like Dorf on golf. Yes.
Right. And then just made fun of yourself in that sense, like, because I still come back to who gives a fuck. Right. And then to make that a moment of that can't be the moment that she breaks up with him. It can't be. No. It just undercuts everything about her. And again, it doesn't, even if she tries to explain it away,
you can't help but think this is why. Right.
She should have seen the scars, mentioned them to her friend, and then her friend goes, oh, you know what? I bet that's what this is. Yeah. And then eventually, as she's, sitting on a plane, realizing that, like, I've got nothing here. I'm on a plane going to a place I don't want to really go, on a passport that I just got because it's all about the money, and I'm sitting in first class, and I'm like, this is just not who I am, and this is not who I want to be. Like, I don't want to be one of these women that comes to me and gives me money to do this.
But then and here's the other part about the ending is that I don't buy that she wants to be the woman who struggles with the struggling actor either.
Right. That's That's the other thing too.
I know you said that she like grows, but she doesn't grow that much. Like,
no. Right?
I don't see this kind of like change in where she's like, yeah, you know what, I'm okay struggling, right? Like,
well, and because the only question we get in the job is whether or not she's going to take over the firm. Right. I mean, so that's the only that thing that's left lingering is she going to take over the firm? And you know that she probably will, because her boyfriend doesn't make any money, right? And they've got to live in New York somewhere.
Well, and I guess they can live together in her apartment.
Right.
I mean, this is not like the housing thing is not like a big, if she is able to afford that on her own, then whatever little he brings in
is only bonus, right?
Is fine, right? And he's living in a bedroom with like 4 other people.
Right.
So like they'd be fine. I don't know. I feel like I want to give Celine Song the benefit of the doubt. And I know that she appreciates that coming from me. But I just feel like a lot of stuff she was trying.
Over 6 foot male.
Yes, over 6 foot. Although I don't have any money. I just think a lot of stuff that she was going for just doesn't come off, right? Yeah. I think that the trailer sold the movie one way, and it's something completely different, which I like. That's fine, right? But I feel like it got stuck. I think somewhere, like, kind of in the third act, it got stuck, like, betwixt and between these two different ideas.
Right. And it just doesn't, like, if you look at other, like, romantic comedies that kind of play in this realm of rich versus poor, like, it comes, I don't know, it just comes off as false, right? Yeah. The only thing I can only compare it to is something like Pretty Woman, which is a complete, like, farce compared to this. Right. But, like, I do think that having this set in this world is a misstep for her. And I think that's what kind of really, like, puts her at a disadvantage, because, again, when you're looking at past lives, but having all of these dollar amount, having this so, taken away out of reality, right? For at least the majority of, like, everyone in the world that, can't afford a $12 million apartment or doesn't struggle as an actor in a 4-bedroom apartment with 5 people living there, right? Like it's a weird New York story that guy's gonna kill somebody if
I know.
we got somebody zooming in and out of traffic. Like,
there's a reason he has no bumpers.
Right. It's a weird New York story that like is oddly unrelatable, where most like New York movies you kind of can feel yourself like at least can put yourself in the scenario. I don't know,
and that was,
but
that was part of it. I mean, again, like of course we're going to compare this to Past Lives, but Past Lives there was no mention of money, but nobody seemed to live above like their payroll, right, or above their means. I mean, like Magaro's a novelist and Greta Lee's a playwright, and they live together, and then like their apartment makes sense, right. You see it makes sense, right? I mean, they go to artist retreats, and like all of that makes sense, right? And in this, it just none of that stuff like coalesces and really comes to and
right. And like, yeah, it's weird that I guess, but it seems like the only reason that 80,000 exists, right, is that it's still like it's not enough for her to support her and Evans, right?
Right.
So if she were still in love with him and loved his boyish, quirky actor charms, right? That if she made 160 or 200 in this role, which she probably should be making that amount of money,
it also seems like a small amount for that job.
What that job probably cost those people,
right?
Then like it's like is that the only reason that it's 80? So because she couldn't then also take care of Evans, or it just doesn't make
no. See, I mean, those are the things. And again, but I think that's the stuff that comes up like when you bring in this number, right? So,
right,
whatever she was trying to do with bringing up that number, it's a misstep because now we're still talking about it in this way of like, well, why wouldn't this work? Like, why? What's the issue then? And
I think you talk about Dakota Johnson's growth in this. Like I don't think that it's the problem with a lot of these movies have, but like this extreme event that allows her to then question her values, right? To question her standing. Again, going back to Wall Street, they're breaking up the company, real people are losing their jobs. That rings a little bit more true than, I never thought ever. Like you have to, whatever. Putting realism on all of this, but you have to think in the employee orientation that they would have said, hey, at some point, people get sexually assaulted, and
this might happen.
And like when we do as many dates as we do, it's likely. And here's how to handle that. Right, you're my best matchmaker. I can't have them crashing out the moment that someone, and also then like causing me more legal liability.
Right.
If I've never ever had
brought this up before, people don't know that this is a possibility.
They never had the inclination of like, oh, wait a minute. Even some rich guy, and that's the other fucking thing that's kind of weird about this, is that it shouldn't have been Magaro, and of course we never see him, right?
Which is the voice.
But it shouldn't have been a poor guy.
Right.
It should have been a fucking. It should have been a unicorn. Like what the fuck?
I know.
Like every step that this movie could have made and they made right, it takes the wrong one.
It's like it has the right idea, but the execution doesn't work. I mean, like why? Why have it like that? And I don't necessarily mean to say that you need to demonize the rich, but we're in 2025 and where we're at the moment. But but also she is demonizing the rich,
right?
Because Pedro Pascal had this ridiculous surgery, right? And like we meet all these people who make a certain amount of money, which I consider to be in some bracket rich, and they're all like superficial and like materialistic and like idiots. So she is demonizing.
But I think that's the worst way to demonize the rich, though. Is we clearly know that they're superficial.
Right.
But here's the thing.
No, but that's what I mean. Like
anybody that's doing this service has to have some superficiality to them, right? I mean, here's the thing. Poor people. There's a reason that no fat chick bumper stickers exist, right? There's assholes out there. Everyone has some sort of level of artifice, right? Right. Everyone has some sort of level of this is what I like and this is what I don't, And so, there's reason that there's porn categories. It's just what that's not unique to richness. No. There's some 40-year-old guy who makes $30,000 a year who still who only wants to date 22-year-olds, right? who won't date anybody in his own age. That's not a rich thing. And just because they're rich and they think that they can, pay for certain.
Right.
I mean,
but I mean, my point was just like, yeah, he didn't need to be a poor guy because you're already demonizing the rich. Why not just take it a step further? Why not just keep going with that? Right. Yeah. I mean, so I was agreeing with you.
Right. Yeah. No. I get.
Don't yell at me.
Sorry. But, I mean.
Everyone listening's like, Jesus, because why is he yelling at me?
The Megaro piece, right? And again, we don't see him, we only hear his voice. But that then indicates to, like, if they didn't do again, it adds up all these things like the 80,000 does, right? If this guy doesn't make the 200,000, then he's only paying for this service so he can sexually assault, women who are vulnerable in a sense, or that he feels like he can prey on these women who are paying for dating him, and it gives him some sort of ego boost because he doesn't make the amount of money probably that these women do, right? And so again, then you're making this guy a weird monster that's not the plot of this film, and like, and then that brings up, okay, does this firm only care that the guys could pay the bills? They never did a salary check on anybody. They never did a background check to see what these guys actually made, even though they're like, so again. Then you have a reason to be that woman has a reason to be pissed off because
I mean,
obviously she would regardless of who it is, but I just don't understand like that choice, that script choice to make this a guy who's like, oh, he was lying about this and he was lying about this and he was lying about this, and like, okay, yes, I understand why she's pissed, but if Dakota Johnson was good at her job, she'd know that he was lying about all of those things. Right. The firm would know that he was lying about all of those things, and that to me. That whole portion of it is like, that's not a reason that Dakota Johnson should bemoan this job. That's the firm's problem, not Dakota Johnson's problem. She was given bad information.
But is it Dakota Johnson saying in a way, I have reduced people to an index card? Just what they are on paper and not what they are as actual people. Right, but it would give her a reason to say, well, my index card was wrong. Right.
Like if she's still looking at all of this as transactional, she still then sees the value of the transaction. It was just her data set was wrong. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like the more that I kind of sit with this film, the less and less I like it, and it's just.
I really wanted to like it.
I did too. I really did too. And look, I mean, I think it's well shot. I think Celine still has all. I think it's a pretty film. Like it's well constructed.
Oh wait, let me ask you, how did you feel about the cavemen?
Oh, fuck that shit! God damn it! Fuck you, dude! Why did you even look? I can't believe I fucking forgot about that fucking framing. I hate framing devices in most cases anyway. Yeah. Oh my god! I fucking completely forgot about that shit.
How do you really feel about
that? How do we not bring that up until now? Where the framing device is...
Because it's horrible, and I didn't want to talk about it. I wanted to forget it was there.
Jesus Christ! I completely forgot about that. Yeah, no, I hated that. I hated that in the moment, absolutely. And I knew as soon as I saw it, I was going to hate it. Like this.
As soon as it started, I was like, no. What are we doing here?
Right. So the movie opens up with these like the first couple, right? The first marriage.
Yeah.
And this hairy caveman puts a flower finger on a hairy cave woman. Yeah. What did I say? A flower finger?
A flower finger?
A flower ring on a cave finger.
He brings her flowers that he picked while he was out hunting.
Like, why the fuck would cavemen give a shit about fucking flowers?
Like, I don't know how that got through, like, editing, right? Like, how...
That is such an easy thing to slice. Like, you just...
Oh, it does. It really doesn't add anything to what I mean. So what? Oh, like they were much happier because they had nothing. Like,
right?
What are we doing? Is that all we're saying there?
That we've got to boil it down to that. Like he likes her hairy boobs. I mean, like it's just. I mean, like.
And look, and like you just said, everyone's got their something, and like that's fine if that's your thing.
Now, I want to see a version. I want to see a version of this film where Dakota Johnson's like doing this for cavemen. Like, I mean, like I know that's part of what she's doing, right?
Right.
But it would be funny to like have like Gronk come up and like
just her, just like her sitting
She can't
there,
be too big. She's got to have
hairy boobs.
She's got to make more than 80 pelts a year. That was bullshit. And again, such a ridiculous gimmick on that belongs to a lesser filmmaker. Like,
right.
And to a much lesser film. Like that just it was so bad. And that's why I've blocked it, because
right, because you don't want to talk about it. And it's the first thing I forget about the film.
Right.
Right?
And
I just like, okay, well, that happened, but I don't want to remember that.
And like, what is that trying to say?
Yeah.
What is that love conquers all again? That like, we do need to go back to our, like, it doesn't matter how, what we do or how we live, as long as we've got a flower
We got
ring.
each other.
And
that's enough.
What did we do, baby, without us? All right, I mean, like, it's right. I don't know why she's doing that
that.
when it comes up, that it's going to come back, right?
Right. I mean,
it's a framing device.
End of the film too.
Right.
I mean, that's the other. I mean, it's such an easy out. I mean, she takes the easy way out with this movie,
right?
And having her end up with
Evans, right?
With Evans, and it's just.
And why do we need another one of these films where that happens?
That's the thing, because this film tries to do everything else differently.
Yeah.
But then you do the same thing at the end that all of these films do.
Right.
And I would have much rather seen, a zag at the end where, like, why does she need to end up with anyone? Why doesn't he reject her? I mean, he's clearly pining after her. We see that, right?
Right.
And so then why not just go, you know what, you're right, I do think you're a bad person. And like leave.
Or we're not right for one another. Like, we may have been at one point, but like, this is not, like, I mean, like, I clearly haven't changed in the past 5 years. I don't know how long it really had been, but like, I clearly haven't changed.
Well, that was that was the other thing. Like, how long had it been since they split up? Because they were together for 5 years, which it seems like maybe that should have been longer. Maybe that relationship should have been longer. And then, like, how long has it been since they've seen each other? Because then, like, at the end wedding, Evan says something about, like, you call me up, you do this, blah, 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 right? And you're like, okay, so this happens before? Because it sure seemed like you hadn't seen each other in a long, long time.
Right.
And if that's the case, then how do you fall right back in to all the old ways?
Right, because we're almost kind of made to believe that Dakota strings him along.
Right.
That she keeps him in her back pocket and like fucks with him, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, hey, whenever she feels down about herself or whenever she feels like she feels lonely.
Yeah, she rings him up, and he's the
guy that can be
and will always be there.
He'll always be there because she knows he's a loser, right? She knows that he can't ever get out of his own way and that won't do the things that he needs to do, and like, he's going to be there, and he's never going to have a steady girlfriend, and even if he does, she won't care, and that's a way more interesting story too.
Right. But yeah, I mean, I have no idea how long it's been since they've seen each other, and then, like, it's really surprising when he drops everything and goes to help her.
Right.
I'm kind of like, if you haven't seen each other in like years, I'm not answering the phone. I mean, like,
yeah.
That probably says more about me than it does.
My stomach's dropping. I'm throwing the phone across the room, and then I'm gonna go run away.
Yeah. So yeah, I think there were a lot of good ideas, but I think that there were missteps in the execution of them, right? And then those ideas got muddied.
Yeah, I think this movie's trying to have its cake and eat it too, and I think I just don't understand, like, when you did something so confident and so complicated as Past Lives, why you allow yourself to, like, I mean, like, it's fine if you want to make an easy film, but like, then.
But I don't think she was trying to make an easy film.
Right. I don't think so either.
I mean, that's the weird thing, is that you see enough subversion in this film to think, like, oh, if you would have done this instead of this, then that becomes more complex, more interesting, more thought-provoking than what we got. And so, I mean, I don't know. And I feel like this movie has really, like, split people. It's like, you either love this thing or you hate it.
Right.
I'm a little bit more in the middle, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
although the more we talk, the more I'm kind of like.
That's what I'm saying. The more I think about it, the more that I'll never. I don't necessarily know if I hated it. Like, if I walked out of there going, "Well, that was a piece of shit," but like, I
didn't do that.
But I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to revisit. I don't know why I would ever revisit this.
No.
And like, the more I think about it, I think its flaws are so glaring that, like, I wouldn't ever recommend, rewatching this to
no.
watching this to anybody.
And it's not one that I'm going to tell people to go check out, which is a bummer.
It is a bummer.
So I'm looking forward to what she comes out with next.
Right.
So I can get rid of this. You know that she had this job for a while. Did you read that?
Oh no, I did not know that.
So she was a matchmaker for 6 months in New York City. So she had the same job that Dakota Johnson had. So like past lives, this is, this comes from autobiography. Right? I mean, if it's not rooted in, it's at least inspired by, which I think is interesting, but also kind of a letdown because you think there could have been a little bit more edge here.
Right. Yeah, there should have been something a little bit more substantial here, and you just wrap this, really kind of oddly conventional story. And not even conventional, just an oddly an odd story. That just is just empty in the ways that it shouldn't be.
Right.
Oh well.
So yeah, that's our start to day 2.
And we'll talk in a few hours about films we did see, and hopefully we liked. And I think we will. I'm actually pretty excited.
Yeah.
About it. I'm even excited about Lockjaw.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm excited about both of them. In fact, I'm excited about all the films
Don't
we're
hit
seeing.
this
So
guy.
I'm going to try not to, but I can't make any promises.
No, and I don't want you to, do things that you can't promise, right? So I mean, that is something I don't want you to do.
Right.
So yeah, we'll be back with part 2 a little bit later. Although you won't know it's later because these things just kind of run together. So anyway, we'll talk to you then.
Yeah, keep screaming.
You have been listening to Why Does the Wilhelm Scream with your hosts, Brock and Jason. If you liked today's episode, do us a favor and rate, review, and subscribe in whatever application you use to consume podcasts these days. You can reach us by visiting whydoesthewilhelmscream.com. If you are in the DFW area, we would love to see you at a Fort Worth Film Club event. You can learn more about those and find a full schedule at fortworthfilmclub.com. And you can learn about my foundation and how we are trying to foster the next generation of film lovers at realhousefoundation.org. That's REEL housefoundation.org. Till next time.